a previous show up on at our regular time today, and hope you enjoyed that. Kind of a best of, but we carved a time out here. I've gotten through with the project I was on today, and if any of you are out there, I would more than love to hang out with you. So we got an hour live here that you can call at 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774 with this unexpected kind of drive by drop in that we're doing here, I guess. But thanks to my team, Albie and Greg and Jessica, who do such a great job in making all this happen. And they were able to pull this together at the end of the day. So we are here, and you can call in. 844-940-2774 is the number. We passed a milestone yesterday with our 100th version or 100th episode, I guess, of the show. And so now we're working on the second 100, right? Today is 101. And we also had a celebration of Boundaries.me yesterday. And speaking of Boundaries.me, we have the email questions that are coming from the Boundaries.me members. And by the way, if you are a Boundaries.me member, then let us know. Come on the chat section there and say hi, and that you are a member of Boundaries.me, and tell us a little bit about how you're experiencing it. What's it like for you? And we'd like to hear from you. So if you're a Boundaries.me member, please go on the chat right now and just say hi. We'd like to know who you are and where you are and all of that. Here is the question for the Boundaries.me, or that came in from the Boundaries.me subscribers today. And it's a great question. I thought that a lot of people could identify with. And it comes from Angie, and she says she struggled with this for such a long time. I can believe that. By the way, Angie, do not be surprised when you have what we call patterns that are just kind of they're deeply woven into who we are. And if you experience that for a long time, well, think of it as wiring. Okay. So it's not like you're failing over and over and over and over again. It's like you were wired in a certain way where you live out an internal program, and that's kind of how you're wired to do until it changes. So I don't want you feeling, and anybody out there who's had a long-term pattern of something, remember that's wiring, and you can change that. But until you do, that program will run its program. That's why addicts, for example, think they're going to quit, think they're going to stop by willpower. Well, not until you wire a new program, you're not. You're not just going to cut that one off. So don't feel bad that this has happened for a long time. But here it goes. I have a tendency to defer to those I really like and admire, and then after a season start resenting that I do this. Oh, Angie, this is a little messenger that lives in your head, and you're ignoring what you want and what you think and all of the things that you want to say and do. And the messenger knocks on your door and says, we don't like it. You're ignoring us. Angie, listen. And that's what we call resentment, because how you really feel, you try to squash down because you fear it's going to get you in trouble. You're going, shut up, shut up, shut up. Shh, be quiet, be quiet. But it starts to build up, right? Well, that's how it works. That's why boundaries are so important. So that's normal too. Angie, so far you're just as normal as they come, right? What you're saying is, if you do something you don't like it? Okay. Where's the rocket science here? Start to resent it. So then you get a little anxious that you'll overdo this, resenting it and overdoing it, as in becoming passive aggressive in my response to the person that I put up on a pedestal. How do I do this in a healthy manner? I'm so glad you asked. You've got something going on here. If you go to my book, Changes That Heal, and that's what I would suggest you do, or I think we probably have a course on boundaries.me about, getting into adulthood. What you have described is, you said you put them up on a pedestal. So here's the deal. As you like somebody, you start to elevate them and you idealize them and put them up above you, which makes you put yourself below them, which makes you, watch the math, this goes up, this goes down. Okay, put ages to this. When are we a little person in a big person's world? When we are children. Okay, now watch how this works. Guess what God has wired in to every single child? And parents who don't understand this always end up with troubles. This little person in a big person's world, they are wired to grow up and want to have a say. They want to have an opinions. They want to say, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'm going out tonight. I'm going to drive the car. I'm going to put a ring to my nose. I'm going to paint my hair purple. So you've got this kind of like adolescent overthrow of the government here. Why? To get to equal standing so that you can say to quote mom or dad or whoever you put up on the pedestal, well, I know you like this, but I like this. And I'm different than you. You have this opinion. I have this opinion. No, I don't think I want to do that, but you can do that. That's good for you. And we are equal adults, right? And there's nothing to resent because you're not giving in to the parental control that you yourself created. Now, what this says is that there's maybe some kind of unfinished adolescent passage, which means that maybe, I don't know you, so I'm theorizing here, but this is what you see a lot of times, that some authority figures in your life could have been parents, could have been teachers, could have been nuns or, church people, or we hear this from a lot of authority figures that might have been feeling a little heavy handed to you or couldn't stand to be pushed back against, or maybe you didn't develop some of the feeling of your own self confidence. So you tend to idealize and put people up and think they're all good and better than they really are. But all that's doing is inviting you to grow. It's inviting you to go through that adolescent passage and rebel against the people that you've elected. Think about that. So remember, this whole problem starts from the idealization by putting them above you. So here's what I want you to do. Go look at that list of skills and changes that heal. What it says is that you've got to begin to go through the speaking your own opinions, disagreeing nicely when you disagree, having your own thoughts, saying no when you want to say no. And what's going to happen is now you're going to have a good anxiety instead of a bad anxiety. Right now, you're having the bad anxiety. I'm scared. My voice is going to come out. It's going to get me in trouble. Why is it going to get you in trouble? If you have an opinion with a friend and you're equal to that friend or any other human, and you're in trouble for having an opinion, that's probably not a friend that, if they say like that, that's going to be a very close friend anyway. So don't count your critics, weigh them. That's what I always say. Like, if somebody can't handle a separate opinion, then they got to be frustrated, I guess, because they're going to find some people disagree with them. So if you can start to begin to voice those, and also here's another thing, people you put up on a pedestal, I want you to start, if they're look all good, all powerful, all wonderful, then it's time to bring them down off that pedestal in your head and start to ascribe to them what is true, that they're human beings with their own weaknesses and foibles and all that kind of stuff. And if they're not acting that way, then they may be narcissistic in their own right. It's one of the reasons why I think teachers, um, you know, people that, especially in spiritual scenarios, like pastors, for example, or people that teach things like leadership or self. I mean, even doing what I do. If you notice on this program, um, at least I think I do as much as I can as appropriate. I don't want to use you as my support group, but I'll always talk about how, I struggled with this and how to overcome this, and have my daughter on here and ask her what are the screwy things I do as a dad. where are my mistakes? So you got to, just because somebody has some competency or strength, I mean, I hope I have some things to offer here, but that doesn't make me any smarter or better than you because I'm on the air or I'm a teacher. And so you got to see people like me as big screw ups because we are, because all of us humans are in this journey together. So none of us is better than anybody else, but there are some people that want to place themselves up and appear to be better. And you need to laugh at that. When somebody's trying to look cool, that really makes them look stupid, right? Because why are they so afraid? So if you can look at it that way, then you're going to start showing up, and then you're not going to be passive aggressive. You're going to be aggressive in the good sense of the word. Aggressive just means energy, right? You're going to show up with the energy of who you are, and that's going to help that, I think. So I'm going to ask the team, Jessica, do we have a course on boundaries.me on achieving adulthood or that fourth stage of changes that heal?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. What? And it is called what?
We talk about it in the boundaries between parents and adults.
Parents and adults. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So if you're a Boundaries member, just look up that course and you'll find a lot there. Okay. So we are going to go to the phones here. Let me get the number out one more time, 844-940-2774. Got to thank all the callers joining us at this late hour, especially if you're on the East Coast. You've been fighting the war against all those dysfunctional people all day long, and you still have the energy to call. That's amazing. But that's really cool. Okay, but Raina is calling us from Southern California, so it's not that late here. Raina, how are you?
Hi, Henry. Hi, good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much. Thank you for calling.
My question is, I have a lot of different interests, and I've never really had my own career, and now my kids are teenagers, and I feel like I'm in this period of waiting to send them off to college, and my husband's always been the breadwinner, and he's an academic, so I've kind of been the trailing housewife overseas and stateside, and
wait a minute,
we're interested,
overseas?
we lived in Egypt.
Oh, wow. And you've just come back here?
Yeah, we lived in Cairo, and both my kids were, no, years ago. And we've always been interested in going back if that's, we don't have like a geographical, we're not bound geographically.
Yeah.
So so we're kind of open people. He doesn't love where he is at always as far as work-wise, and I kind of see different avenues and opportunities for myself, but I tend to go into projects that I don't actually get paid for. So I'm just wondering, how could you give, what kind of direction? What do I do? I do some.
No. Wait,
some writing.
Finish the question. What kind of direction about what? What was the question?
I have which avenues should I actually follow? I feel like there's different interests that I pursue, and I sometimes feel like I'm a gambler. Like, okay, I'm going to do this, see what happens. Because, recently I was contacted by a recruiter for a job, and they encouraged me to continue growing in the area they were recruiting for, but it's not an area that I've worked in, but it's an area that I have been interested in. But it's completely different than
so are
what
you
I've
asking,
done. And I haven't really done.
Are you asking how you find your interests or narrow them down? I'm hearing both.
Narrow them down. I guess narrow them, how to decide where I should invest.
Well, are there any kind of external determinants that, do you have to make money? Do you have to, what are the sort of parameters that this decision has got to satisfy?
Like I said, my husband's been the breadwinner. He's an academic, so his salary covers us for the most part. But it would be nice if I actually,
Would it be nice,
received
or is
some
that
kind of compensation?
well? That's what I'm asking. I'm hearing two different things here. Would it be nice, or do you really want that to be a part of it?
It would affirm that I am bringing something of value to the table, I think.
You mean if there's somebody willing to pay for it, it has value?
That's a good question.
It is a really good question.
Yeah, I don't know how to decide these things.
Okay.
I've never made more. Yeah.
So what is it? What is it that you can? What is it? What kind of avenue or direction can you not do?
Be around people that I absolutely just have no imagination.
No. I think I asked you I think you're answering the opposite direction. What is it that you can't? What is it that you just have to do? Right.
Oh,
we all
okay.
have
okay, so I find
you will never ever get me to get away from reading about golf, watching golf, playing golf, talking to people about golf. Okay, you'll never get me to not be able to read theology or psychology or delve into the journal. You just can't stop me. You're not going to stop me. All right. Now, whether I get paid for that, that's another thing. But there are passions and there are drives
you just want me to,
that God put into people that you can't not do.
Okay. I guess 3 of them is write. I feel like I'm one of those people that have to write.
Okay, you got to write.
But I don't feel like it. Yeah.
You don't feel like it what?
Well, I don't feel like I have to be somebody who's published, though. I guess
Well, who cares? We just said we don't care, right?
Yeah.
If it pays or doesn't pay, I'm just asking you. Right. I'm asking you for passion.
Okay, and I'm also passionate about healing issues, especially related to people who've experienced trauma, particularly refugee communities, because that's part of my background.
Oh, cool. Okay. So getting involved in heal, and are you doing those things now?
Yeah, I recently wrote a piece related to this.
So you merged two passions there. That's pretty cool. You merged two passions. You see how you did that? Writing and healing. You said there's one more. What is the other one?
Something that I absolutely have to do. I think issues related to identity. I guess I'm somebody who that's something I do talk about. I think a lot because I have an identity that kind of bears a lot of different. It's somewhat complex, that being a Christian and being from a part of the world that is often seen in a certain way that's not always positive. So I think I have a lot of conversations.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't?
No, I don't understand what you mean when you said you're into identity. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't understand.
I'm part of a writing group. I'm part of a writing group with people who, some ethnic studies professors, and so that's kind of what I mean. Some of what I write about is my identity as a Christian from the Middle East. So that's that's something I will always talk about, and I will always advocate for people who share that identity with me.
Okay, so you identify with a particular constituency group. Can we put it that way?
Like a persecuted group of people, I would say,
Okay.
that are, ethnically
Sort of like
persecuted
okay,
or
got it.
religiously
All right.
persecuted.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let me give you one of my favorite verses. Okay. And I want you to think about this in
Okay.
answer to your question. Because generally, one of the ways to think about this, I love to see what occupies people's heads that they can't get out of their head. If you look at certain people,
Okay.
if you're in the waiting room in the doctor's office, there's 56 magazines. There are some people, they're always going to wear the architecture magazines, where the sports magazines, where there are things that you care about in your heart. And generally speaking, I'm gonna name three things here.
Okay.
When something you care about, A, that you also have an aptitude for, B, and then world has a
Okay.
need for that, C, when those three come together, boom. Now, if one of those is missing, we usually don't find a path. Like if I have a great interest, say I love basketball, I don't have the aptitude or the height. And the world probably doesn't need, a 5'9.5" professional basketball player. It ain't gonna happen, right? Also,
Yeah.
I can have an aptitude at something that I don't really care about. I've got a really good math brain. I just don't care. And I was an accounting major and I dumped it. I just don't care, right? And then sometimes we're really good at something, we have an aptitude for it, but the world doesn't really need it. They yawn when we show up. So I would, and here's the verse, and I got to get to some other callers, but I love what you've asked because so many people struggle with, especially sometimes when they're going through a season. You hear this from a lot of empty nester moms. You get this question a lot. It's a great question. I want you to watch what goes in your head, because here's the verse. It says that in Proverbs, it says that a person's path comes from their heart, and then God directs their steps. Okay. So I would want you to look at the excitement of where is there something going on in the world that kind of needs something written about, needs somebody to volunteer or help in helping heal people, and maybe that particular group that you identify with. And then I would get moving, because God can't direct the steps of somebody that's standing still because they're not taking any steps. And you're going to have some misfires, right? You're going to wander down a road and, wow, that was a dead end, turn around and come back, but you're moving. So that's the way I would look at this. I don't know anybody that that really kind of found it without getting active and getting off of the sort of like the theorizing chair. Just go start doing it. Write some stuff, volunteer, get involved. Something's going to coalesce, especially if you're asking him to lead you.
Okay, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Great, it does. Thank you so much.
Are you sure?
Well, like the direction that it sends me in is not an area that seems feasible given, I
heard the hesitation.
My preparing to launch my children. What's that?
What do you mean it's not? I said I heard the hesitation. That's why I asked you, what's not feasible?
Well, so for example, I'll look at different programs maybe to prepare myself for some kind of field. And I've looked at, PhD programs, say in like ethnic studies, or I've looked at psyche programs.
What's not feasible? Going back to school?
The financial part, yeah.
Okay. Well,
and as I consider sending my kids to college,
but I didn't say run off and get a PhD. I just said get started. Like take a step and get involved.
I'm already at the starting point though.
Okay, well keep doing that, because that's going to build on it. I don't want you thinking of obstacles before. If you got to a point where you said, I really want to get a PhD in this, all right? If you got to the point in the momentum where you had so much going on and the only way to take the next step is to get a PhD, a door will open if that's where you're supposed to be. and then you can figure out
Okay,
how to
that
do
makes
that.
more
But
sense.
you're not going to do
Okay.
that from way back here. That's what I meant by start moving.
Okay, that's a little bit more helpful. Okay.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. I appreciate your call. It is a good question, because a lot of people, we tend to, it's almost like saying, oh, I'd like to play football. Well, but it's really not feasible to play in the Super Bowl. Well, okay, let's go down to the playground and get a pickup game. We'll start there. And then you get better, and then you meet somebody, and they know somebody, and then they introduce you to a coach. I mean, we got to start moving. I remember a guy telling me, he just he wanted to preach. It was burning in him to preach. And he goes, but I don't think I can get a job as a preacher. I don't have the right degree. And I said, well, where are you preaching? He said, well, I'm not, because what church would, I go outside and preach to a tree. People that can't not preach are the preachers, right? People that can't not do something. It is burning in you. And we have to find what burns in me. I can't not do this. And then I start burning, and a fire starts in a good way. And then we'll find the next step. There's a lot of different ways to live out our passions. Okay. I feel passionate about this. Sorry. And sometimes, it takes a while, right? I mean, before I went off and got a PhD, I went to work in a psychiatric hospital as a college graduate for $3 an hour for a year and a half. I mean, my father thought I was crazy, but I had to kind of you got to get started. You got to pursue it, and things are going to open up, but get moving, get some momentum. Okay, Bella calling us from Santa Barbara. Hello, Bella. How are you? Have I got you? Hello.
Hello, Dr. Cloud.
Hi, Bella. How
Can
are
you
you?
hear me?
I can hear you
I'm
now.
doing well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's good to be with everybody at the end of the day. Tell me what you're calling about.
Well, I had a question regarding a sibling, my younger sister, and
how old are each of you, and what's the age difference?
I'm 36. She's 31.
Okay, 5 year age difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so over the last 2 or 3 years, I've kind of removed myself from her life a little bit more and more.
Is she local to you?
She is the only family I have local to me, yes.
Okay,
she lives about 10 minutes away from me.
And both of you grew up where you live now?
No, we both grew up in LA, and then we moved to Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay. And did you move together or separately, and just happenstance you ended up in the same place, or did you move together and then there's been a break?
I moved here first for undergrad, and then she moved here 5 years later for undergrad when I moved back here for grad school.
Okay. So you had left and you came back?
Yes, I left for 5 or 6 years and then I came back.
Okay, so you guys have had a sister breakup. So what's the question?
Well, I was concerned at the time when I started separating myself from her that boundaries were being used as a way to control. And I had brought this up to her attention because she was doing some things that I found to be very hypocritical. And other than, now I'm at a point where I'm thinking, other than removing myself from essentially her life, I've seen her twice this year. I'm wondering if there is something I can do to kind of talk to her about it again, and hope that the time has given us some space apart.
How is she controlling you? What was she doing that was controlling?
Well, I'll give an example.
Because the funny thing about that are boundaries are the opposite of controlling someone. That's what's so interesting about this.
Yeah.
Nothing could be less controlling than to have clear boundaries.
Well, I'm not really sure what to call this then.
What is?
I'm not sure what to call this then.
Okay, what did she do? Just tell us what she did.
So here's an example. On my 30th birthday, I wanted to get together with friends and have a small gathering at the park, just a little barbecue with 4 or 5 friends. And she told me she wanted to take me out to lunch, just the 2 of us. And so asked me not to invite any friends, just the 2 of us. And then when I showed up, she was there with her boyfriend. And I felt really much like a third wheel. And I had asked her, I thought you said it was going to be just the 2 of us. And she said, well, it's his day off and I couldn't leave him alone. So
Okay.
something like that, and this
so
happens very often.
You had foregone the party you wanted to do this with her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. I wouldn't call that a boundary. She just did. She just did I guess, a crummy thing. I mean, if she, I don't, it did. She says just the 2 of us, and then she brought somebody. It seems like a breach in the contract there. So
This happens very often, though, where she sets the terms of the contract and I agree to them, and then she breaks them but doesn't tell me about it until it's happening.
Okay, so
and that's why I separated myself.
And that's why you called it controlling. I can see what you're saying. So she wants to stay in control of what really happens, but she does it manipulatively and not straightforwardly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have gone to sister and say, you know what, I want to talk to you. There are several times, and I'll give you a few examples here so you know what I'm talking about, that you'll tell me one thing and then you'll do another, and it leaves me in a funny place. Are you aware that you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Have you said that to her?
I've said that to her. She responds by getting mad, and the last couple of times I brought it up, she stopped talking to me for 3 or 4 months.
Okay, and stop talking to you meaning no. So you say that to her, and then she goes off on you. She gets mad.
Yeah, she tells me to stop talking to her like a therapist, and then she'll just get mad and say, I don't have time for this, and hang up, or just block me on social media, or block my cell phone that's been text. And when she's ready, she'll talk to me, but then she'll come back and it'll be like it never happened, because if I bring it up again, it'll just repeat the process.
So she will come back to you
after, on her terms, and given the understanding that we pretend it never happened.
Well, but that's where you don't agree to those terms.
I don't agree to these terms, no. And that's why I've separated myself. But she's the only sister that I have. And I'm not sure. I wonder if there's something else that I can do that maybe I don't see.
Unless you have other people that you are close to that she does this to also, and y'all would all like to go talk to her together in a group of 2 or 3. But what you're talking about here is giving feedback to somebody that won't accept the feedback. And then what I would do, she's living out it's kind of a ambivalent dependency here, right? She wants you, but then she doesn't if you're not going to do it her way. And so, I mean, you have some choices. It's totally up to you. You can have a relationship with your sister if you do whatever she wants and you don't bring it up.
That's the choice that she's providing, and the one that I'm not so sure about. So I've separated.
There you go. Now, what I would do is when she comes, well, there's a couple of things you could do. You could preemptively write her a note, send her an email or something, and say, I hadn't seen you in a while. I was missing you, but last time I saw you, when I told you about, it didn't feel good when you blah blah blah, then you got mad at me and went away. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, if you want to try to get to an understanding of how we can be together and agree to our commitments, I would really be open to that. And I'd love to talk to you about it. If you don't want to do that and you don't want to hang out with me, I understand, have fun, whatever it is you're doing. So I think you can address it. If she wants to just come back and say, oh yeah, we can come back, but I'm not going to talk about this and you have to continue on my terms, then that can only happen if you open the door and agree to that and say, you know what, I want to get back together, but I can't until we clear something up. And that's my condition. And that's my condition. I want to be with you. I want to get together, but I can only do it if we address what continues to happen and get to a better understanding. If we can't, I don't want to repeat what we've been doing. And then she gets to choose.
And I don't blame her, Dr. Cloud, as much for the pattern that I would call it inherited. This is how my mother is when we were wrong.
Then why aren't you like that?
But that's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to fall into that. It didn't feel good. Bottom line is it really doesn't feel good that somebody hurts me and I just choose to stop talking to them. So I think for a long time I accepted things on her terms because of that pattern, not knowing any better.
Okay, but I understand you don't want to blame her, but you have to attribute responsibility to her.
That's right. I don't want to blame her, but I do want to hold her accountable.
Well, great. Use a different word. I don't care what you call it. But, blaming somebody for what they are doing is not bad blame. That's responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Bad blame is when I do something and I attribute responsibility to you.
Mm.
Like, you made me do this. That's toxic blame. But if you come over and, if you like come do something crummy to me, you hit me or trip me and break my arm or whatever, and I blame you for my broken arm, that's right. It's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
That's holding somebody accountable. So I think one of the things that you've got to come to grips with is, if this is ever going to get good, sounds like the pattern in the family might have been that she and your mom were enabled somehow to not ever take responsibility for their victim martyrhood or whatever that dynamic looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And people would kind of enable that and walk on eggshells and kind of do it their way. And it works as long as it works. Yeah. What you're talking about is you don't want to do that anymore.
I don't.
Good for you.
So it seems like the option is that we kind of keep things as they are, in which we live our separate lives and very rarely see each other, or we both come to an agreement. And
both come to an agreement. See, both come to an agreement, right? It takes two people to have a functional relationship. Okay. It takes two. So if you're not going to allow her to be accountable for this, then you can't have a functional relationship. You can have the kind then that she wants to define. But if you want a functional one, then she's got to take responsibility. So you may be up against the wall of, I will never, or right now, I can't have the kind of relationship I want with my sister because she's not willing. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to people all the time who have relationships with people in denial. And that's a sad thing. But then there you are. And so I don't want you to blame yourself for that, or see that somehow you're failing because you're not doing option number 3, which could be to, if you got some people together and y'all could all go talk to her and say, we love you, but we want you to accept some responsibility here. That's called, kind of the mini intervention. Then here's kind of the problem. You don't have the choice that you want to have.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel for that. You don't have the choice that you want to have. So now that choice isn't available, which of the two that are available do you want? You want to comply with her, do it her way, or do you want to stand up and require her to take responsibility and then risk not having a relationship?
complying with her is kind of what's kept me small throughout the years and feeling like my voice and my choices, my boundaries don't matter. And that's the pattern that I've been breaking away from my family.
Good. You don't want to go to your grave and look back and say, I wasted my life because my sister's blame had control of me. You don't want to do that.
No.
So I feel for you, but that's what happens with people in denial. If it's any, and she might come around one day, but if it's any consolation, Belle, are you a person of faith?
I am, yeah. I'm a very spiritual person of faith.
Okay, so you got some good company because God has the same problem you have. He wants to have a relationship with people, and some of them won't admit that they're wrong. Some of them won't take responsibility. Some of them don't come to the table and say, okay, I want you to. What do I need to do? You know? And they blow him off. And so what he did was he went out, when he got rejected like that, he went out and found some other sisters. And I think that may be a really good thing, is for you to, find the sister that you're looking for, maybe in some really, really good friends.
Oh, and I have that. It's wonderful.
Good for you.
I am very blessed to have wonderful, wonderful sisters.
Great.
And brothers.
Well, live that out and be a good sister and brother to them. Okay. Got to go to some other callers, but I thank you for your call. And, Bella brings up a great point in her question. And this is a great question for you to ask, many of you out there. What is it that I am wanting that's not an available option? Do you know how many people stay stuck because they're wanting an option that isn't one that's being offered to them? They want to have a good relationship with a person that's blaming them and in denial and not taking responsibility. And they want to have a relationship with that person where they don't feel resentful and they have a voice. Okay, that's not one of the options that's being afforded you. Okay, you're in a relationship with an addict that you love because they have all these wonderful qualities. And you want to have a relationship with all those wonderful qualities and have them be sober. Okay, but that's not an option that's on the table. And so you stay stuck wanting that option instead of looking at the other choices and options that are available to you, some of which may provide the impetus and the influence and the pressure that they might get sober, or that maybe her sister would take responsibility. Like, if you write a letter, I really miss you. I long for the times we had. I want to get back together. But here's the only way I can do it, is if you'll own up to this pattern and not do that and agree to that, then I can do it. Or it's very possible that if her sister finally realizes she can't have a relationship with Bella until she says, I'm sorry, and changes, now we've got a whole nother scenario that possibly opens up because the boundary forced it. But if you're feeling stuck, what you might want to ask yourself is, what option am I asking for that's not an available option? Great way to stay stuck. Great way to stay stuck. Okay, so let's see. Where are we going? So Kimberly, who's calling us, looks like from way across the country in Florida. Kimberly, are you there?
Hi, Dr. Cloud.
Hi, Kimberly.
You've been a key Hello. You've been a key authoritarian in my life as far as being an author, a psychologist. Yes, author, a psychologist, and a theologian.
How about authority?
You have influenced me.
Oh, well, cool.
Why don't I say that?
I hope for the better.
Absolutely. And I actually met you once in a church in Illinois, shook your hand, and I'm just a real I have this I think that you have a lot to offer. That's what I want to say. I don't want to be nervous here. You kind of get nervous when you're in this.
You're very, very, very kind to share that with me, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I have your books and your DVDs and stuff. You're great. And I share you with everybody else who loves you too. Anyways, my question is, I've been married for 38 years and I love my husband dearly. And he loves me. It's just, I need to get a spark back in our marriage. We're kind of like two ships that pass in the night, and I know
do you ever
he would
dock
like more than
at
that.
the same dock?
No.
Just keep passing by each other, so you never stop and like talk?
Not too much, no. I mean, he likes to watch movies late at night, and I'm not interested in his movies, and I don't know. We just don't have the same
what did you used to do that was
interest.
The same?
When we first got married, I mean, if he wanted to go out and get a newspaper, I would be right by his side. I don't know, Henry. I really don't know what we used to do together. Maybe that's the problem. I don't think we've ever really.
38 years.
I mean, we had the. I know. Well, he worked the PM shift, and so I kind of raised the kids through that. And we lived in Illinois all our lives until 4 years ago. We moved to Sarasota, Florida, because he promised me when I was 30 years old and in an apartment in the Chicagoland area with a new baby. He gave up. Somebody called him and said, I want you to be supervisor in Tampa. And he said no, because my family, my mother and everybody in my family is still alive. So I said, one day we're going to go to the Gulf, live by the Gulf of Mexico. And so I kept him to that promise.
Okay,
and
so
what
you moved to
was,
Florida.
We moved to Florida, and he wasn't really into it. It was kind of like, one day I came home and there was a for sale sign in front of our house. Not exactly that, but it was pretty close to that. And so we've been in Florida for 4 years.
4?
4 years, yeah.
4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how old are you guys?
Yeah.
How old are you guys?
I just turned 65 this week. So, and he's 63.
Him? Okay.
He's 63.
All right. So is he happy in your relationship?
I don't really think so. I mean, all men have desire, I think, more than females, and so I'm sure he's not. I mean, we get along just fine.
Wait a minute. I have no
idea.
All men have desire more. I said, is he happy? And you said all men have desire more than females. And so he's not. What do you mean? That he's sexually not satisfied, gratified? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure because we haven't like docked at the same dock, as you say, for quite a long time. And
really? How long?
Wow. A year?
Ooh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not having intercourse with words. That's what they call a conversation is intercourse. And you're not having intercourse with your bodies. So you're not joining sexually. You're not joining in words, and you're not joining in activities, and you're not joining in interests. And so I think it's time to sit down and say, we kind of been going on some patterns here, and I would like to find some things that we share and some things that we have in common, and spend a little bit of time together doing those. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, it sounds so simple, but it truly is something we need to sit down. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds so simple that it makes me want to ask, then why have you not done that? Usually when we're not doing what's obvious, why?
Wow. That's a good question.
I would try to go I'd try to go answer that question. Okay. And here's another thing. I'm gonna give you a tip. It may be too much for y'all to launch into one-on-one bliss in any of those areas immediately, since you've been kind of like parallel play. I mean, this is kind of like kids.
It's terrible. It is terrible.
Parallel play, right? And so the skills and abilities to be able to do this immediately like that may not be that easy. I would like for you to have a conversation, but let me give you a tip here. I think it may be done most easily if you guys join some sort of place where it's already being done. In other words, you become part of a group. So you find some group through a church or a community center or something else that you both would be interested in. Then you go that way. The impetus and the structure is already there. You guys aren't creating this. It's already there. Go take a class together. Go take golf lessons together. Go learn how to scuba dive. I don't know what you're going to do, but find something that exists that's external to the one-on-one. Because sometimes for some people, the jump into one-on-one intercourse in the way we're talking about it symbolically is too much.
Sure.
And so you got to meet some external structure or some external kind of group that's doing that. And that's the way you first begin to do it. So thank you for your call. I got to get some other people, but I wanted to kind of make a point of that, guys. For some of you who are in relationships where it just seems like a big gulf, sort of too much to traverse, jumping over the chasm of where you are and where you want to be. Many times, then that means that the capacities and the skills and the abilities aren't really in the house anywhere, or at least or they may only be there in one person. And so sometimes it's much better to go to an externally existing, already is there structure that you don't have to create it. It's there. It's like go to a couples group, that we are here to study a marriage book together, or go to a couples retreat, or go take a class, or go see a counselor. The point is, you're not inventing the wheel. The wheel has already been invented. And not only that, past that, people are hanging up a shingle and handing out flyers, basically saying, we're here for that reason. We are here for that reason. Okay, let's go back to phones. We got really, really fast. Unfortunately, we're getting close on time here, Marla, but I want to try to address your question here. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I've been married for 10 years, and my husband has been addicted to pornography the whole time.
Oh.
I didn't know it when we got married, but found out rather quickly. So I've sort of just been enabling it, kind of turning my face.
How have you been enabling it?
Just by turning my head, not really caring. He's never wanted to have be intimate with me because of it. So we've only been intimate maybe.
You've only been what?
Intimate, probably about 10 times in our marriage.
Wow. That's 10 years. That's like.
But
Not a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a broken part of our marriage. But through boundaries.me, I've been able to implement some boundaries, and I had actually kicked him out of the house when I found him at the beginning of August. But I kind of discovered through that time that, that I don't think I love him, and maybe never really have. And I'm not, I don't know, not interested in him. And felt a lot better when he was gone.
You've been ignored for a long time.
Yeah, well, going through all that obviously causes a lot of negative things.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is just,
go ahead.
What would you recommend? Like, what? I mean, I know that through God, all things are possible, and I believe that, I believe that God can do a miracle, but I've been pretty much in a very unhappy marriage for a very long time.
Yeah. So what? Unfortunately, I'm kind of right down the clock here. So, is there a specific question, or you want me to just give you some thoughts, or what is the question?
Yeah, just to know. I would like just to know that, some recommendations you might have for somebody that's in that kind of situation where they're just not feeling like they love their spouse anymore and not attracted to them.
Yeah. Well, you say anymore. I'm asking one quick question. Sorry about, I don't know what's happening in my house here with my dog. I may be getting burglarized, and you guys can see the whole thing unless she takes care of the burglar. You said anymore. So at one time you were attracted to him. I mean, you married him, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but not a lot.
Not a lot. Weren't attracted a lot?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I know I married him for the wrong reasons, but that's kind of water under the bridge at this point.
Okay, well, that's probably a lot to unpack, but let me just give you some thoughts. Yeah, God can do anything, right? I've seen it. I believe it. Generally, he more than generally, this is almost like his program. He can do anything, but he needs a willing participant, right, to do something with. And so that would require your husband recognizing this is a problem and wanting to lean into it and establish a connection. Okay, so one of the things that you're saying here is for 10 years, he has avoided connecting with you, not just sexually, but in all these other ways. And what pornography does is it actually, it divides the personality, in that somebody's sexuality goes over here to a fantasy life, and it's not integrated with the real person of who they are, because the real person of who they are is the only one that can have a real relationship with the person that they're married to, right? And so what he's got to do is, there's some work. There's obviously not intimacy between the two of you because his sexuality is going somewhere else, right? That's the split.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's got to happen is two things. One is he's got to find out kind of what that's about for him and own it as a problem, and realize this is a coping mechanism. I'm turning to this because I have fears of intimacy, or I'm medicating something, or problematic feelings with myself, or whatever it is. And he needs some healing of that. But then in doing that, I don't know if you can see the screen or not, he's got to do a 180 and come back and start to meet you. And what happens is, if people can do that, and I've seen this many times, if they can do that and they start to get real and start to connect and start to get vulnerable and enter into each other's world, then you see attraction and love begin to come back because it's a result of connection. But see, that's probably only going to happen. Whoops, I think I might have lost you there, but I got to get to the end of the program.
No, I'm here.
Okay, good. What's got to happen for that to happen is, I think it's going to take a structured setting. I would recommend, you ever heard of New Life? Call 1-800-NEW LIFE and look into one of their Every Man's Battle workshops. Is a great one. There's others for sex addicts that would really help him begin to see with other men, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that struggles from this, but it would also begin to work on the marriage. But I think probably for that to happen, then you're going to have to require it. And you said you threw him out. So that's the beginning of that. And I would hope that you're appealing for him to do that or get into a really good either essay or marriage counseling, because two things have got to happen here. He's got an addiction that has nothing to do with you. He would have had this, didn't matter who he's with. So don't blame yourself for this.
Yeah.
But also, in addition to his individual healing, he's got to do a 180 and come back and turn towards you. And then when that connection starts to get developed, that's when, it comes back. Okay, I've got to run, unfortunately. I hope that helps. But I do strongly recommend you guys have got to get some help outside of just the relationship with the two of you. You need some external help, and he needs some, because this is long-standing, and it's going to take some structured approach. Okay. Thank you for your call.
Okay, thank you.
Such a hard situation. Some of these long-standing patterns. I want to kind of normalize something about this, though. If you feel pain from a long-standing pattern and you feel things are beginning to shut down, well, that's because it's been 10 years, right? So hope deferred makes the heart sick. So that's a real thing. But the other thing about this is that when somebody does own a pattern and then enter into a different path, then actually new things can happen that have never happened before. And that's what growth is about. That's what a turning around, that's what repentance really is. It's changing. I was going in this direction with my life and my being, and I'm going to turn. That's what the word means. Change my mind, have a totally different, I'm going to go in this direction. How can something different not happen? Think about it. See, what people a lot of times want is they want something new to happen, continuing to go in the same direction. Well, nothing new is going to happen in the same direction. Well, conversely, if I'm going in a totally different direction, how can something new not happen? It only takes one person to change a relationship, because you're not continuing the old pattern. And so what she said that was very powerful there was she said that she threw him out of the house. She caught him and threw him out of the house. Well, okay, now we're going in a different direction. We're not continuing the pattern anymore. What we got to do is add the ingredients there that would help it to get to a good place. Okay, I wish we had more time, but thank you guys for joining late in the day. I know for some of you, if you're out there, what time is it? If you're on the East Coast, it's kind of getting, you've been hitting pause on Netflix for a while here. It's getting late, but anyway, it's always good to hang out with you guys. Thank you to our callers who make the program. Thank you to all of you, Boundaries.me subscribers. You're mailing in your email questions. Those are going great. The comments that you're leaving, it's so good to hear from you. And we're developing a tribe against, the how did I put it? The herd immunity against dysfunction. Because as we deal with issues and we come together as a group and we own our stuff and we take the next step and you go in a different direction, that's an immunity against dysfunction, and it can't play in your yard because you're immune to the dysfunction. It takes two to party with dysfunction. And if one of you doesn't fit the dysfunction, it can't happen. That's what immunity is about. So that's what we're about on this program. And it's always good to be with you. Go to boundaries.me and check it out. You hear more and more people talk about, they're learning this and learning that and taking this step. So go check it out. It's free to check out. Boundaries.me. Go to that website and become a subscriber and join us. And tomorrow, I think, I'm pretty sure this might go out to just our email list. Jessica, you're going to have to help me on this. But we have a special event coming up that we're going to do in October. And they told me I couldn't announce it until tomorrow. I don't know why y'all won't let me announce it until tomorrow. But it's going to be a live event. And it's for many of you who struggle and have been hurt in a certain area. And that's all they'll let me say, except it's going to, Jessica, is that going out on email or how do people find out?
Yeah, it's going to go out in email tomorrow. We'll be giving everyone the details and letting them know how they can sign up and get involved.
Okay, so here's a question. What if we don't have their email address? How do they give it to us?
They can go to boundaries.me, scroll to the bottom of the page and put their email in there.
Okay, there we go. And then you'll be on our list and we'll send you all sorts of fun stuff all the time. Okay. All right, guys. It's so good. The community. Thank you so much, guys. I go to Facebook and you say the nicest things, and I'm always touched, and I really, really appreciate all the comments and some of the really, really wonderful things you said. So thank you for that. And we'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Have a good night.